Now, you might be thinking, zine making, why the fuss? You know what? It just seems like a lot of work. Maybe you don't feel creative. But the reason I'm so excited about, getting communities, rural and regional communities to create zines is because I've been talking to neighbourhood house coordinators and just realising the amazing power of getting people to do something that's actually a conversation about community development. So creating artwork together or creating writing together or contributing to these things is a really amazing avenue for really engaging with perhaps the parts of your community that wouldn't normally share their opinions. So we all know that when we go out into rural and regional communities and we ask for, okay, what do you want and what do you like and all of that, you've always got the squeaky wheel. We love the squeaky wheel because we know that they're going to turn up to the consultations. We know that they've got ideas and passion, but we also know that there's a sector of our community, a pretty large sector of our community, that don't take the opportunity to share. And so part of this project, part of the zine exhibition project is about giving you an opportunity to engage with your community in a different way, in a new way, in a creative way, so that you actually get in the voices of people who perhaps we don't normally hear. So this video is really just a starting point. You know how to engage your community, but this is just a starting point on how I would use this process to engage with your community through this kind of creative process. So I hope that this is useful and gives you some ideas about how you want to go about it. Obviously, at the end of this video, you're going to need to sit down and work out the process for your community. What does this look like for your community, for the people that you have influence over? It's not a one-size-fits-all. We know that all rural communities are different and all neighborhood houses are different, all people are different, and so we need to capitalize on that. So the first thing I would be asking myself is who? Who are you targeting? You can target everybody if you want to, but I can assure you that when you target everybody, you end up missing a bunch of people because you end up with some kind of bland approach. Now, if you do want to target everybody, I would suggest that you take different approaches to different groups. But think about whether, if you're targeting school kids, that's going to change the way that you do this. If you're targeting the elderly, that's going to change the way that you do this. So think about who is it that you're targeting? Who's your primary focus area that you actually want to hear the voices of? Again, if it's everybody, that's great, but remember that everybody is different. Now, why is the next question. What are you going to do with the information? Now, obviously, we're holding a zine exhibition, and so we're expecting that these zines come through to us so that we can have a statewide conversation about the richness of being rural and regional. What about being rural and regional makes us happy and healthy, and what could be better? Okay, so for me, the why for me is for us as a university and also as neighborhood houses is understanding at that state level, what are the things that we see are making us happy and healthy, and are there surprises in that story? Because sometimes when we have these conversations, we learn new things about what people think makes them happy and healthy. And also, what is it that the priorities, the things that are coming up again and again at that statewide level? And so we will be looking at all of the zines and looking for patterns and ideas in the middle of that. But you need to think about what is it, the reason that you're doing it. What are you doing with the information, but also what are you trying to achieve by the process? Because it's not just an information gathering process. So you're creating connections with people who perhaps you haven't had connections with before. You're creating partnerships with other organizations. Think about why. What are you trying to achieve and what are you going to do with it? Now, what I would recommend, to be honest, and we're doing exactly this, is to create an exhibition where you can invite people along. Because the whole point of a zine, the whole point of using creativity is creating a conversation about this idea that, having the park in town makes me happy. Knowing that Jack makes brilliant coffee and over the road and he's always really happy to see me makes me happy. But the thing that would make it even better is having somewhere for me to gather when I don't want to spend money. Somewhere that I can just hang out and be cool and enjoy the outside area. Or maybe it's about public transport, or maybe it's about internet. It could be about any number of things. So we kind of gather that information, and that gives us a conversation to have, because then when we bring in the school to see our exhibition, when we bring in the local councillors to see our exhibition, and we kind of walk them through that, then you can actually say, look, have a look at this. Everybody is screaming out for this thing. And then that gives you some direction, or at least some confirmation of the things that you want to be working on in the future. But more importantly, when people talk about the next thing, they get excited about it and they get on board. So if you've got your community watching your exhibition and everybody goes, isn't it incredible? Everybody is just absolutely asking for a place for young people to gather. Then you can bet your boots that there's someone in the community who goes, you know what, if everyone's asking for it, well, maybe we should do it. And we know that the role of the neighborhood house in the middle of the community is actually to empower the community. And that's what this is about. How can we create conversations where people are motivated and engaged to come up with new ideas and implement them? So think about why you're doing it and what you're going to do with the information. Now, the how is a really interesting question. You as a neighborhood house coordinator, whoever's watching this video, you might not feel that creative, but you do have influence, and you have probably more influence than you would imagine. So you want to identify where are the key areas that you have influence within your community, that if you take an idea to them, that they're likely to go, you know what, we're going to do this. So it might be that you have a great relationship with the school, and you know that if you go to the principal and say, hey, we're going to have a zine exhibition, do you think maybe we could run zine making in the lunch break or even in the class time, and you know that they're going to say yes, then really think carefully about where are those points where I can just get someone a little bit excited and then they'll run off and do it for me. Okay, so identify a few people. One of the really good ways to do this is to get creative, influential people involved. So people who, when they say, hey, I'm doing this, that everybody follows. See if you can find one of them. You need somebody who's a little bit creative, or at least open to being creative. They don't have to be hugely skilled in terms of art. They just have to get enthusiastic about creating things. Okay, that's very different from being artistic. So go look for someone who's kind of like that, someone who's followable, someone who likes making things, and who other people want to spend time with, and give them the kind of opportunity to plan this. Think about where you can embed this activity into the everyday life of people. There is a real challenge getting people to do things that are effortful, and you've all experienced that, okay? So one of the ways to make sure that your exhibition, and my exhibition, to be honest, is successful and has lots of zines to show, is to see if you can find ways to embed the zine making process in the day. So for instance, at schools, if you can embed it in a class activity, then you know that you're going to have a set of zines by the end of that class activity. Even I would love to see some zine making workshops happening in aged care facilities. Maybe the kids are actually going across and working with the older people and having that conversation. There's a real opportunity there to start talking and start that conversation about what makes you happy and healthy and what would make it better. You might have social groups, say a group that just get together, and maybe you can actually embed it as one of the activities. Now, obviously, you've also got arts areas, and it's always brilliant to get those guys involved because they have some amazing artistic skills that will be really worth bringing to the table. But the more of those groups where you can get people to organize to embed it into their day, the more likely you are to have a number of zines. Obviously, you can host your own zine making workshop or session. It doesn't have to be a workshop. You don't have to tell people how to do it, but just an opportunity for people to get together and make zines together and talk. And you imagine the conversation that comes out of those sessions when people are talking about what makes them happy and healthy about living in your town and what would make it better. You don't get any better than that. Okay, that's brilliant. Now, marketing is always a tricky one. Think about hosting your exhibition in a really public space so that you can get some newspaper time. So maybe you're going to host it at, I don't know, the local town hall, and you make sure that you involve kids. Involving kids is always a great way to make sure everybody knows about it, so that everybody comes along. Newspapers, obviously, you know the game with newspapers. Photos are king. If you create an opportunity for a photo, even at your zine making workshop, you're far more likely to get yourself up on the front page, particularly if you've got some cute kids involved. That always helps. Now, social media is a brilliant way to engage people, but the kind of really important rule of thumb is make sure that most of the time you're being useful and interesting on social media. So you're providing tips on how to create a zine, you're providing resources on how to do this, you're providing, say, videos of people creating a zine that are interesting, or videos of people talking about this kind of thing, about what makes me happy and healthy. And then every now and again you advertise, but not all the time. Okay, so always make sure that you're providing value on your social media, and then occasionally slipping in an advertisement. Then people will engage. So I've created a bunch of templates that you've got there. So make sure that you print out those templates, because it takes some of the hassle out of creating a zine. You can just easily work out what's on page 1, 2, 3, and 4. And look, have a sit down and think about what's the process that you want to work with, who are the people that you want to get involved, what are the organizations that you can partner with. And I really hope that this becomes a regular activity for you, and that you find it easy to get your community really engaged with this creative approach, and you get a far broader range of voices into your conversation about what makes your community happy and healthy, and what would make it even better. So I'm really looking forward to hearing about what you achieve in your community, to hearing about these conversations, and to seeing the zines. Get in touch with me if you have any questions. I'm more than happy to chat on the phone. And we'll be in touch. Thank you.